Thank you very much, Gatimu, for such an interesting session. And I want also to welcome all of you right here. If please you can be able to hear me, give me the flag of your country. If you can get to hear me and see me right now, I'm seeing 98 people. I'm assuming at least we have 30 countries from here. We are patriots. I want to see that. That is one way of recognizing you. Please welcome to our community. I am very honored to see you here. Today we are at 99, so we only need 2 more people and the doors will be closed. So I want to thank you for coming in. It's already at 100, so everyone else who is not right here is out of this amazing place. I must first recognize the usual faces that I've been seeing in this community for quite some time. Samuel Muragori, Deogratius. Deogratius joined one of our programs and he got promoted in between the program. The money was so sweet. I don't know where he went, but it's good to see you back here, gentlemen. Nathaniel, good to see you. Lerato, good to see you. And from my kind heart, and because you are bold enough to express what you want to do and what you want to achieve, you get a free ticket to the upcoming roundabout and intersection design program. So Lerato, that's it. Captain Gatimu, please take that and let's make sure that she gets that. Joving, it's good to see you. Dennis, good to see you. Samuel Munoru, always here. Hakim Hula, good to see you. And when I look at also the flags that we are getting, we have Andrew from Kenya, Lois from Kenya, Brian from Kenya, Mohammed Sheikh Hamed Habdi from Somali. We have Zawa from Tanzania, Joy from South Africa. All of these people, Zim, my people from Zim are right there. Rwanda, everyone is right there. I also heard there's someone from Macedonia. I have been in Macedonia, but in the Bible, there's a letter from from Paul to Macedonians. So I think that's where we are. Thank you and welcome very much. Adis, it's good to see you all here. I'm seeing people from India. And let's jump straight into the session because we've already acknowledged everyone that is here. Alex Ndeke, it's always good to see you. Emmanuel, good to see you. Jeremiah, good to see you. And everyone else, please feel very much welcome. So today's session, I think I end up crazy script here because my assumption was you guys are super his. But then from the interactions that you've had, you are gonna make me put it away for now, so that now we go into the basics and the fundamentals so that we build from that point. I want to go straight into what I had prepared, but looks like we are not going to cover all of it because also I don't want to leave anyone out. So you will allow me to address some of the things that I think is what you're looking for. In case I don't get it, please don't be mad at me. This is going to be one of the best sessions that you've attended about roundabout design. That is my commitment, and I hope that you're going to deliver exactly that. Let me just do away with my camera because I don't want to distract you. I want you to focus on these PPT that I had prepared with you in mind. And please, if you can be able to see it, let me know. If you can be able to see my screen, please let me know. If you can be able to see my screen, please let me know. And Gatimo, can you see it?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
I can.
All right. I love that. Thank you very much. So today's session is going to be actually in only 3 phases. And this is always the approach that we have in all other webinars that we have hosted. The first, actually 4 sessions. The first one is the interactive session. And I've had Farouk from Pakistan, what they are doing with their design. I have also heard from the letter saying that the mentors, that the people that she expects to be her mentors do not have some of these skills. And then I've also earned from a gentleman, Anab from the UK, who is also designing cycle lanes, and you will see how we integrate that in roundabout design. I have also heard from Addis, who is looking to get a deeper understanding and actually has an actual place where they can be able to implement these very skills on site. It is important for you to know that during these sessions, I will be disseminating a lot of information. I normally do my webinars in terms of a story. So in case you just forget everything else, I want you to remember the storyline. And if you remember the storyline, it will be easier for you also to remember some of the things that we will be, or I will have covered. So the second session is the presentation, which I'm doing now. The other one will be the revision of design workflows that we use to model roundabouts. And then after that, we are going to have a case study and then close the session. The session is supposed to end at exactly 9:30. So I only have 1 hour from now. So please, let's make good use of this 1 hour. These sessions and some of the things that I have gathered from my experience with many engineers is, number one, the assumption that design of any infrastructure or any structure is completely separate from the theoretical knowledge that you know. And that is always some mistake. These things needs to go hand in hand. And for you to become a very good design engineer, you must first understand things from the first principle. I remember there was a video by Elon Musk, and he was talking about how he learns and how he creates the kind of stuff that he creates. I'm no Elon Musk, I'm far from that, but I learned something from him. He said that one of his major efforts is to break down any big idea into the fundamentals. So it is only after you deeply understand the fundamentals, you can be able now to build something new. You can be able to use those fundamental knowledge, put them together in a different structure to solve a specific problem. So that's why this presentation is going to take us through the basics and the fundamentals of geometric design of roundabouts. So that now when we go to the practical application and reviewing the design workflows, we can be putting those fundamental principles into the software to give us a predetermined outcome that we want. So roundabout design, basically, if you look at it, is about three main aspects. And it's called trade-offs. The first one is the safety. In any infrastructure that you're going to design, the priority is the safety of the road users. There is no point of you giving the best highway that is going to kill or claim the lives of people. The second thing, this infrastructure that you're designing, roundabout in this case, should be able to meet the performance, the operational performance. So what is the intended operational performance? So in this case, we'll be talking about the level of service. Can it be able to accommodate the traffic? Is it able to alleviate traffic congestion within that session? Then the third component is accommodating large vehicles. Now, in any design, of course, you cannot be able to achieve a perfect design. Therefore, for you as the design engineer is to think contextually. Which of these am I going to trade off? So for example, if I am in this region X in Macedonia, It means there are no major large vehicles. There are no transit vehicles in that case. So therefore, I can be able to train that for safety and operation. The second thing is all roundabouts operate most safely when their geometry forces traffic to enter and circulate at low speeds. This is a fundamental principle in designing roundabouts. And therefore, we'll be talking about where do you apply roundabout and where do you not recommend a roundabout. So all of these features then could be uniform. Of course, all features of a roundabout are uniform if you go to any country. And therefore, the only thing that varies is the location and the size. I remember Farouk from Pakistan talked about the radius of the inscribed circle. So let's then, if after understanding the principle and how the basics of a roundabout, then let's go into the design process. So how do you think about it? Most people, and which is of course a mistake, think that designing roundabout, the first thing you're going to need to do is jump straight into the software. That is not the case. If you want to start learning how to design safe and highly performing roundabouts, you start first with this structure. The first one is to identify roundabout as a potential design option. It is not every situation or scenario that a roundabout will always be the best design option. So let me jump from this presentation, and I want to look at something that guides our approach in terms of choosing the appropriateness of a roundabout. And these are the guiding principles that you will always endeavor to look at. The road design manuals. The road design manuals will typically give you guidance on some of the scenarios and situations and how you need to apply the engineering designs. So let us, for example, look at roundabouts. This is some points. This is the Kenyan Road Design Manual. I'm going to send it to you guys. And it is telling us when to use a roundabout and when not to use a roundabout. So for example, the traffic volume, that is intersection volumes, do not exceed 3,000 vehicles per hour. So if the traffic is beyond 3,000 vehicles per hour, then we can be able, or it's less than 3,000, then we can be able to recommend a roundabout at that point. The second one is when the major road flow is less than 3 times the minor road flow. So what does these two options represent to us? It means you must be able to carry out a traffic survey. So in the traffic survey, you will have estimated the volume, the traffic volumes within the two intersecting roadways. That is how you check the two options. The second one, the use of roundabout may, and this is something that I've always emphasized. When you're reading and interpreting road design manuals, just like the Constitution, because this is the Constitution that guides our craft, you need to understand key words. The first one, should. Should. Any times that you're seeing should, it means it's a recommendation and it carries some weight. Then when you see may, the use of roundabouts may also be considered. It is a recommendation, but not compulsory. And then you will always see some instances where the road design manual is saying must. In such instances, it means it's up to the law. So for example, you must be able to provide drainage. You must be able to provide okay. The session is being recorded. You don't have to worry. You will get it, please. Okay. All right, great. So those are three key ones that you need to look at. The use of roundabouts may also be considered in close to built-up areas where the through road may be crossed by local roads carrying high traffic volumes. You will also be looking at this a traffic calming measure. So if you want to control the traffic in a certain area, then you can propose a roundabout. But then there are scenarios where you cannot, or it may not be appropriate to provide a roundabout. Number one, the traffic is unbalanced. That means you have high flows on one road, and then you have more approaches, high flows on one road, or more approaches leading to serious delays. So in such a case, you cannot provide a roundabout. When there is also substantial pedestrian flow, in such an area, when you're designing roundabout, you're going to provide a splitter highland. And once we provide a splitter highland, we're going to provide, of course, the crosswalk and all of that. If the pedestrian flow is very high, it means they will be crossing far too much, and there's a high chance of the roundabout being fully blocked. And then there is in urban areas, for example, where it is not compatible with urban traffic control, then you may not be able to propose that. But if it is connected with the urban traffic control systems, then you can be able to recommend a roundabout. In presence of reversible lanes. So reversible lanes technically means these are lanes that I think it's a case study in Tanzania, where there is traffic that is moving. It's like moving back. You're having like U-turns around the same section, and then there's where there is very many semi-trailers and abnormal vehicles. Therefore, you will require very big space of land for you to construct a roundabout in that specific scenario. So those are some of the areas that you need to avoid, and some of the areas that you need to recommend the use of a roundabout. So that is always the first stage. The characteristics. What is the surrounding site conditions? Is it a viable option? Then after that, you will do evaluation of appropriateness. That is where you are doing now, after doing the survey, that is when now you evaluate the data. You analyze the data. You see these volumes. Are the ratios? Is the ratio of 3:1 appropriate? What is happening? Is the traffic flow in the major road higher, extremely high, and then in the minor road, it's very low? Therefore, in such a scenario, you cannot be able to provide. So after you have done the evaluation, and remember the evaluation you can be able to use. For example, I remember the traditional method that we used after having your traffic survey is just use Excel and Power BI to be able to compute the traffic characteristics, traffic flow, volumes, capacity, AADDT, and all of that to be able to get these figures that you use to make decisions. And then after that, you can see operations. You also carry out preliminary capacity analysis. In the capacity analysis, you can be able to use HDM4, Highway Design Manual. That is the main guideline when you're evaluating the capacity analysis of any roundabout. And then after that, you go to the initial layout. So this is why I was saying you don't start with going to the layout first. You must first start with these three main steps. After that, that's when you go to the geometric design. In the geometric design, it is a completely or highly iterative process. It's an iterative process. After you get your initial layout, you do what is called safety analysis and checks. So how safe is my design? After getting down the safety analysis, you will go back to geometric design. That is, in case you find, for example, your design does not provide adequate space for motorists, for pedestrians, for people with disability, then you go back to adjust where it is necessary. And then after that, it's an iterative process. That's why you see safety, geometric design, and the final design, they are iterative steps that you need to look at. So then, if I was to summarize all of those stories in 5 specific things that we are going to talk about in this program, is number 1, you need to account for the speed through the roundabout. That is an important aspect. What is the speed? How do you control the speed through your roundabout? Remember, one of the operational principles of a roundabout is to ensure that vehicles are entering. You are forcing, the geometry forces the vehicles to slow down. Therefore, it means the speed analysis is one of the critical pillars that we must be able to analyze. The second one is the design vehicle. For example, when you're designing for 2-lane or a multi-lane roundabout, you always consider a large truck vehicle, for example, WB40, and then a small vehicle. That's the design vehicle. You need to think about what are the turning characteristics. After that, you'll be talking at different geometric elements. When we talk about different geometric elements, you need to think in terms of what is the relationship? Do they communicate? What is the functionality of each geometric element in a roundabout? Of course, safety audits, this is connected with the speed analysis. And of course, after that, you will then check the capacity and performance analysis. So let's look at this one. Speed through a roundabout. Look at this crazy vehicle that is here. That is what happens at a roundabout. If you design a poorly designed roundabout, that is what is going to happen. Crashes. Remember, in a roundabout, vehicles are like, they can be able to approach the roundabout at almost 360 degrees. I mean, this is my crazy view. don't take it seriously. But I want to magnify how risky it is if you don't think about the traffic or the speed flows and profile across a roundabout. So the most critical design objective is achieving appropriate vehicular speed through the roundabout. And this is achieved by doing 4 things. Number 1, checking the speed profiles. How do vehicles behave when they are approaching a roundabout and exiting a roundabout? Number 2, what is the design speed? What are the vehicle paths? So there is the speed profile, but also the vehicle path. How do drivers, navigate a roundabout? And then after that, you need to think about what is the consistency of the speed around the roundabout. So this is it. And this is a typical section of a roundabout. And we are assuming 1 lane entering is this 1 lane? Or yeah, this is a single lane, I suppose. A roundabout, a single lane roundabout. And we are starting with how vehicles approach, the speed profile. This is called a speed profile of a vehicles approaching a roundabout. So you must have this picture in mind. So you see this vehicle is coming at a design or at an operational speed of 70 kilometers per hour. And this vehicle will require almost a distance of, I want you to check this one. So this vehicle is starting at at a distance of, let's say, at a speed of 70. And it will require almost, I don't know how many meters are these, distance from the center, it will require almost 60 meters. Is it 60 or 200 meters? Yes, 60 meters or 200 feet before it slows down. And therefore, if you think critically, this is where the geometry of the roundabout is going to force the vehicles to slow down. If you look at this profile, it is sharper at the entry because it's a deceleration section. And then you will find that there is a uniform negotiation speed for all drivers within the roundabout. So in this case, we are at this point of the roundabout. We are at where this vehicle is. Remember, this is where we are okay, if you're driving from the left, this is where the entry is, and this is now the exit. So the other thing you need to notice is the exit is a little bit smoother for the profile. It is accelerating, going back to almost 40 kilometers, or rather it's going back to, of course, the 60 kilometers. This is for miles per hour. So some of you would be wondering, why is this important? It is only after understanding this pattern you can be able to design the geometry. What are the geometries that you need to design then? You will notice there's something that is called entry radius and entry width at this section. You can also see there is a split island. There is exit radius and exit width. And then there is something else that is called the central highlight. So these speed profiles will automatically affect how you design these geometric elements. And of course, safety. Now, let us move to the next thing. So that is the speed profile. I want you to take a screenshot of this if you can, or, I know your eyes now can be able to screenshot probably, and you will keep this in mind. Now, let us look at the second option, design speed. This is obvious. So after you've been able to see the speed profiles of a roundabout, and I want you to take note of something. These speed profiles have been drawn by American Ashton, and these one are based from data that has been collected. And if you noticed something, within the roundabout itself, there is no vehicle that is above 40 kilometers per hour. That is the vehicle, the speed, the minimum speed of getting into the roundabout. And you see the one also for exiting is capped at 40 kilometers per hour. So look at this one. This one is also the recommended maximum entry design speed for roundabouts at various intersection sites. And this one is based on the type of roundabout or the site category. And this is very important. Before, or some of the old design manuals, they used to give recommendations for design, for the design speed of roundabout based on the speed of the major road. So for example, you are in class A roads, and therefore the speed at that point is 80 kilometers per hour. It is out, you cannot design a roundabout with such a design speed. So when we are talking about the design speed of a roundabout, we are talking about entry design speed. And in this case, we have mini roundabouts. I remember it was Urban Anab who talked about this. And you can see the design speed is 25 kilometers per hour. There is Urban Compact. This is 25 kilometers per hour. And you can see as you go to rural double lane, you see this is a rural double lane. The design speed is maximum at 50 kilometers per hour. These are the recommended maximum entry design speeds for your project. So this is the take home from this one. The selection of the maximum entry design speed for any roundabout is not based on the design speed of the approaching major or minor highways, but rather based on the entry design speed that you want to attain at that section so that you can be able to achieve design or speed consistency throughout the intersection. Of course, there is also a consideration of the site category. That is, if you're in an urban, whether you're having a single lane or a double lane, or you are in a rural setting, and the same thing that is happening. So take a screenshot of that. And then we jump to the next one. Remember this. This is the flow. You must get it before we go to the practical session. You must get the flow. So keep that in mind, and you will see how that applies or how that plays out. Now, the vehicle path. So drivers, drivers along a roundabout don't just drive. For many people, you know that drivers negotiating or interacting with a roundabout is a crazy thing. That is why when you go to the driving school, the board, I don't remember the board. I don't know. Please give us the name of the board that you use in your local driving school. I think for us it was called MTRB or something like that. And this is it. This is it. And if actually you search design of roundabouts even on YouTube, most of the videos that come up is how drivers should be able to negotiate a roundabout. This is interesting. Why is it interesting? Because as the design engineer, you keep switching your personalities during the design process. So you are thinking about as a technical guy, you know, and you are talking about design profiles, you know, speed profiles and all of that. At this point, you also need to think as the person who is be driving. Now, this is the other thing. You also need to think in terms of, am I driving a large vehicle or am I driving a passenger vehicle? Over and beyond that, you should also think about being an elderly person. How will this play out for them? So roundabout design or roundabout speed is determined by the fastest path allowed by the geometry. Roundabout speed, and I want you to note, this is not the design speed of the roundabout. This is the speed within the roundabout. It is determined by the fastest path allowed by the geometry. So let us analyze this drawing, this picture that is on our screen here. And this is very, very important. The first thing you need to think about is, let me look at it. There is this section. You can see this offset. It is from the inner edge, you know, inner ETW, the inner edge of traveled way. So it is being offset at 1 meters. And then at this point, there's someone who is making noise, please. You need to offset it 1.5 meters from the entry. And then you see you are offsetting it. So naturally, if anyone is driving through the section, this is displaying the behavior of road users, assuming that the roundabout is empty. There is nobody. There is nobody. You are driving along the roundabout or through the roundabout alone. So one, you don't want to drive to the edge here. So that's why the offset is from the inside. So you always want to approach the roundabout from inside. Why is that the case? You are looking at the central highland and you are being guided by the splitter highland. So you will tend to move towards the inside of the lane. But then as you approach this section, you will notice that this edge is protruding towards this and you don't want to knock it. And you will tend to move outside so that also you get to navigate this section. And that is why the offset is from the outside. I told you, remember the story. Imagine you are driving through this section and actually you are running away from obstacles. So this one, you want to have a better sight view of the entire section. That's why you are moving in. You want also to be guided here. At this point, you want to avoid this obstacle, and you also want to navigate to have a bigger radius. That is why you are moving inner, outer here. And then at this point, you don't want to knock the central highland, and therefore you will try to drive at the center of the circulatory roadway. And the same process repeats itself, and you get back to the inside lane again so that you can take shelter and traverse through the entry around the central island and out the exit of the roundabout. So for you as the design engineer, you must be able to visualize. Most people want to use softwares to visualize. No, you are the creator. You must visualize the path in your mind before you put it on paper. I'll show you where the manual is also recommending that right away. So let's move. Let's move. So we now understand the vehicle path. We understand how the drivers will be interacting with our roundabout. Now, let us look at it on a bigger scale. Let's look at it on a bigger scale. The reason as why it is important for you to understand the vehicle path is because when you go to AutoCAD, I saw it is, I remember this gentleman, Philemon. He was a brilliant guy in one of our trainings. And I saw him texting me and saying that he was designing a roundabout in AutoCAD, and it was a super exhausting exercise. You cannot create what you don't picture. You cannot create what you don't understand. And this is why we are looking at vehicle path. How will different vehicles be interacting with the roundabout? So that as we go to design the different geometric elements, which I see all of them in this drawing, we can be able to know what is their interaction, what is their relationship, how do they guide the vehicles through the roundabout. So let's get into it. We are assuming, okay, the person who was here, he was driving on the right-hand side. So we are driving from the right-hand side. So we are here. Let me change the color to blue. There's no blue here. So this is where my friend Farouk is driving through. So Farouk, when Farouk is at this point, and I want you to go back then to your driving school, he has a lot of options. So if he is driving on the right-hand side, he has the option of taking the first right turn. If you are driving on the left, you have the option of taking the first left turn. So then what would that mean? How would you as a design engineer interpret that? So it would mean that this curve right here is going to determine or is going to be determined by the vehicle characteristics of the turning vehicle. Hey, is that the sense? It is going to be determined by the characteristics of the design vehicle. So what is your design vehicle? How do you arrive at the design vehicle? That is the question. That is the first option. The second option is you want to exit to the outer lane. So this means he has to keep right and through the circulatory lane. These are called circulatory lanes. So he needs to exit through this one. So that is the whatever. And then he has to do that with the inner lane. And then this is the most critical one, where he will be making a 270 degrees turn. Is that 270? I suppose, because this is 180. So this is 270. So what is the radius of this path at this point? How will you design this to make sure that a vehicle can be able to make a complete U-turn or complete left turn? Remember, when they are making this turn, you need also to optimize the size of the central island and the inscribed circle. We'll be looking at that right away. And then there is the other person who will be making a U-turn. Now, as the design engineer, you must be able to think about these maneuvers. And after thinking about the maneuvers, then you need to think in terms of what is my design vehicle? What are the characteristics of this design vehicle? What parameters should I be able to provide to optimally utilize the space and also serve the intended purpose of the roundabout? So let's jump straight into something interesting here. So we already know the path, the maneuvers. Every engineer, design engineer, must be a licensed driver, and you must not be a reckless one. So after we have understood the whole vehicle paths and everything that the chaos that happens through this section, we need to think about now. We are getting now into the vehicle. We are getting into the vehicle. This case, we were thinking as a driver. Now, let us think in different perspective here. We are talking about the design vehicle. So what is the design vehicle? A design vehicle is basically a guide. It's a guide that allows the design engineer to be thinking with someone in mind. So if you don't have someone to think with in mind, you can think with a vehicle, something like that, all right? So this is a design vehicle. You need to know your design vehicle so well. For example, how do you arrive at that? Number one, you need to carry out a traffic survey. The traffic survey is mostly carried out in 7 days, where you must have 5 working days, and then you have 2 weekends, and then you must be able to do some 24 hours, other 16, and all of that. So the rule of the thumb is we design for the worst case scenario. Therefore, you are going to design with the maximum vehicle from your traffic survey. So if it's an articulated truck, if it is a WB40, if it's a bus, if it's a whatever, then that becomes your design vehicle. So in that case, you'll be able to know the different design parameters. The designer must be conscious of the design vehicle and possess the appropriate vehicle turning templates or a CAD-based vehicle turning path program to determine the vehicle's swept path analysis. When it comes to design of roundabouts and the intersections, the Autodesk vehicle tracking and many other CAD programs are always the best. So look at it here. I want you to picture this here, and we'll be doing it right now in one of our designs and see how the swept path analysis is done. In any design, you must be able to see, for example, this is a WB15 vehicle, and the design engineer must have checked all the maneuvers. So in this case, he is checking the immediate left turn. Okay, this is left or right. I don't know, whatever that is. And of course, he is also checking for the U-turn. So you must be able to check all of them to know whether your design meets this requirement. So the other thing is to know my design vehicle. If my design vehicle is WB15, what is the maximum? Is it maximum or minimum? The minimum turning radius. For a small vehicle, the minimum turning radius is around, I don't know, 7.8 meters. If you go for a semi-trailer truck, it has its own turning radius. But ideally, the turning radius is between 6 meters all the way to 17.5 meters, depending on the size of the vehicle. So please check that out. It's always in the road design manuals. And then after you know those important aspects, that is when now you start thinking about the geometric elements in a roundabout. So I am mapping out the process for you. I am mapping out the process for you. Brilliant as you are, sometimes you may not be having all the data. But at least when you understand the process, you can be able to make what is called educated estimation. So you'll be able to know in such a scenario, I need to do 1, 2, 3 things. So crazy. Let's get into this one. These are the different roundabout elements for preliminary design. I'm not going to spend my time to go through these elements because they are self-explanatory and easy to read. But I want you to think about 3 main things that you need to keep in mind. Number 1, you must be able to select the optimal roundabout size. Anywhere you learn, or anywhere you read online in books and everything, the disadvantage of a roundabout is that it requires big space or huge space or something like that. Therefore, for you as the design engineer, you must be able to get the optimal roundabout size. The second one is optimal position. What is the alignment? And this is very important. What is the alignment? Hey, what is the orientation? Let me use a different word. What is the orientation of the center line of your rods? How do they cross? Is it an X? Is it a cross? Is it staggered? Let me demonstrate that. Is it this way? For example, for this one, it's 90 degrees. So is it crossed? Is it what? That is what we are talking about, the optimal alignment and arrangement of the approach leg. So how would you rearrange them? So you must be able to figure that out in the initial stages on a site visit. When we are talking about the optimal size, remember we are talking about the entire inscribed circle, which includes the inscribed circle. You must be able to look at that because it's very important. And the inscribed circle, this is what confuses most people. Inscribed circle is equal to central highlight plus the apron plus, that is the track apron, plus the circulatory roadway width. Those 3 elements, the central island, the apron, and the roadway width, the circulatory roadway width. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. So let us select the design parameters. And I want you to note this down because we're going to be using them. The first one is when you're selecting the design parameters, the first important thing to understand is the site category. If you remember the video that you watched at the start of this video, of this webinar, you earned different types of roundabouts. There's a mini roundabout. There is an urban compact roundabout. And sometimes in this one, it doesn't have a raised curb as the central island. It's just a flash. And then there's urban single lane. You're going to have also urban double lane. And then you're also going to have rural, where you have single lane and rural double lane. The assumption and always the best case scenario is that the angles between the entry is 90 degrees. And for optimal performance, we are also talking of 4 legs. So you also need to think about the typical design vehicle. Remember, the word here is typical. So when you are talking about mini roundabout, we are using a single unit track. And therefore, we have recommendations for the inscribed circle diameter range. Inscribed circle, this one, inscribed circle, that is including the circulatory lane, the diameter of the central island, and also including apron. It is important also to note that depending on the type of the roundabout that you adopt, you may not be able to include the track apron. And then we're having these ones. So please take a screenshot of this. Let us say, for example, we are designing a urban double lane. So I'm taking things a little higher. And you see that we are recommended an inscribed circle range of 45 to 55. So you have 10 meters to play around depending on the site conditions and of course any other analysis. So note that down. Inscribed circle is equal to 45 to 55 meters. Remember also the type of vehicle. It's WB15 or WB50. Those are the two options that we have there. Let us go. The circulatory roadway. So what parameter do you decide to know that this roadway of mine here should be this parameter? So number one, this is determined from the width of the entry, and it is always 1.2 times width of the entry of the vehicle. Of course, track aprons, you also depend on site conditions. So if you have a lot of large tracks that you'll be using your section, then you can be able to provide the track apron. If you're using a mini roundabout, a compact roundabout, then the track apron may not be necessary. There is always a modification that is needed. But remember also, this is case to case application. Then remember also the swept path, the minimum clearance. So you see, you don't necessarily have at the edge, you see that at the edges of your circulatory roadway, you must be able to give a minimum circulate clearance. This one allows for the overhang of the vehicle and all of that. So you don't design your capstone directly at the edge of your circulatory roadway. You need to give some minimum clearance at that case. So this is also a table that you use to get the circulatory roadway. And I wanted you to remember, we selected the urban double lane roundabout. These are 45 to 55 meters. So come with me, please. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. And we are saying our inscribed circle is around 45 to 55 meters. So if you look at that, you can see the minimum. These are just recommendations, but they guide us in our design. So we are seeing from a range of 45 to 55, we have the option of playing from 9.1 meters to 9.8 meters. So put it also as a range. Put it as a range. Don't fix your mind on one. Now, after that, I want you to see the math, right? We are saying after we deduct the circulatory lane width, we are left with the central island. And the central island for this case is also ranging between 25.4 meters all the way to 36.8 meters. Why do we normally, or why does the manual give us range? Because it allows design flexibility. It allows us to customize these various aspects according to our site conditions. So this is the same thing when you are selecting the central island of a roundabout is the raised, non-traversable area encompassed by the circulatory roadway. So this one is where you do the landscaping for aesthetics, and it should also be raised. I remember Farouk was talking about the drainage, the central island. How you design the central island determines how the drainage of your section is going to look like. So mostly you'll note that the circulatory roadway is designed to drain water away from the curves or from the roundabout, so that it's easy. You know, the roundabout becomes self-draining. We also say that we use reverse super elevation. That's technically it. The beauty of reverse super elevation is the drivers will slow down naturally. Like the geometry forces them to slow down. And then also it drains water away from the roundabout. And then the other aspect is the super elevation in that case should not be 4%. It is always around 2% to 2.5%, because also if you increase the super elevation to 4% within the circulatory roadway, what happens is trucks will start offloading without any request or signal. I hope you understand that case. So the other thing is the entry width. So the entry width, this is where I was talking about. The entry width, this is the distance from the apron. From the edge of the splitter highland to the edge of the capstone. This is very important. If you're designing for a double lane, we always consider two scenarios. You will have the launch track, and then you will have a passenger car that is moving on the outer lane. So why this tries to simulate an actual scenario, because now when you have those two tracks, mostly drivers, large track drivers, will not even want to negotiate a roundabout. They don't want to get into a roundabout when they are in two opposite lanes. It's a recipe for an accident. So mostly you will notice that we use the major and the minor, or rather a large truck and a passenger car when we are designing the entry width. And it is normally between 4.3 to 4.9 meters. So note that down. Entry width is between 4.3 to 4.9 meters. Remember the reason as to why it is wider than the lane. Remember, in this case, we don't follow talking about a lane of 3.5. The lane of 3.5 terminates at this point, where the speed profiles start to vary. So with this curvature of the geometry, then you will find that these sections are naturally wider. After that, there's entry curves. This is the interesting bit, and I love it. Why do I love this bit? Listen to this. The entry curves are the set of one or more curves along the edges of the pavement of the entry roadway leading into the circulatory roadway. I want you to go back to the same thing we talked about initially, that the main operating principle of a roundabout is the geometry to force the vehicles to slow down. How do you do that? It is through the design of the entry curves. Now, this is the conflict that happens. As you're designing the entry curves, it is important to note that if you constrain them too much, you will find that you will affect the performance of your roundabout. So, a balance between the two. Now, listen to this. The entry curve is designed curvilinearly tangential to the outside edge of the circulatory roadway. I wish that I had all the time to, to do this with you people, but that's why I'm packaging a course on the design of a roundabout, and of course include some intersections here and there. But look at this one. This is the interpretation of this statement, and this is a big factor to ensure safety and performance of a roundabout. So let's look at this one in a different style. So we are talking about this curve. Remember, this is more of a double lane, and this is the center line. Let's just call it the center line for now. And this is the ETW. So this one should be curvilinearly. You know, it's a curve that is tangential to the edge of the circulatory roadway. So this is the circulatory roadway. You know, we are assuming this is the circulatory roadway. You know, that's the giveaway sign, and then it will move. Don't mind my hands. I'm shaking. I'm shaking out of content. So this way, that manner. So this design is curvilinear to this one. Interestingly, we were designing this with my team, and we found that this one does not necessarily mean putting lines together. because we'll be carrying out speed check lines, speed analysis. And that's a crazy thing. So this radius, this is the entry curve that is curvilinear to the ETW, and then the inner one is curvilinear to the midpoint of the circulatory roadway. Remember the circulatory roadway, we were talking about 9.1 to 9.8 meters. So you will split it into half so that you get the center line and you design your section. This one, following these principles, does not guarantee a safe and an optimal design. Take that to the bank. So the iteration, the experience, the precision, your visualization really affects how you design this section. This is the hallmark of designing your roundabout. Why? These entry curves, and of course the exit curves, because that is what is next, they determine how vehicles will slow down, how they will get into the vehicle, into the roundabout, the accidents that will occur, how drivers will behave, the vehicle path, and all of those processes. So this is a critically important part of this one. So I want to just move quickly to this other part. And you see, this is how we carry out the design check. So I want us to go now to the other part, the practical bit. I cannot be able to complete this today, and I know I can't. But I want us to go now to the practical bit of this design. How does it look like for us applying those principles? So let's get into it right now, right here. And I'm going to open my Civil 3D design. And I want to open one design that was done by one gentleman that is already here with us. And he is called Engineer Abraham Nyanja from Uganda. Such a proper gentleman. Now, I want to talk about something. I'm talking now in terms of practical approach to designing roundabouts. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat box. I'm gonna be addressing them, all of them. You should not go home with any question tonight. I'll be addressing them. Now, when it comes to the practical design of roads, you need to think of it as an holistic exercise. What do I mean by an holistic exercise? You will always find a mix of different design elements and needs. For example, in this project, we have a crazy loop here. This is more of a trumpet. Is that a trumpet? Something like that? Because there's a major road that is passing someplace here. I think I just omitted it. So this is more of a trumpet intersection that you have here. We have some loop roads all over this place. Let me actually take you guys to site. Allow me to take you to site. Allow me to take you to site right now. My guys from Macedonia, from India. I'm taking you to Kenya right now. You don't have to pay any fee. I'm taking you to this crazy place. Look at it. So we are on site. And I want you to think of it now, the holistic approach that I'm talking about. And this is why I want you to be a really good, a really, really, really good engineer. Mohammed, I know the site is amazing, so please don't write. I will write for you. So this is the trumpet intersection that we're talking about. So how do vehicles maneuver here? Because for you to become good in designing any project, for you to be able to apply all of this theory that you've been going through, you must be able to understand the vehicle movement pattern. This can only be perceived by you being to side and doing nothing other than observing. So the vehicles move from the major highway here. and they will get through the trumpet or the loop here, and then they will get to this other road. So this one is A3. So I'll be calling this A3 road going forward. And this one is A2. You can see it right here. So the A2 is the one that is feeding this other traffic on this side. So I want you to go back to the traffic study and some of the recommendations where we talked about situations that are appropriate for a roundabout and the ones that are not appropriate. So such is a scenario. So you cannot be able to propose a roundabout in such an instant. The traffic in A2 is super crazy, almost 4 times, 5 times probably what is in this other road. So you understand the traffic. This is a loop. So in your design, you'll be able to do a loop. So this is a loop from this section. It's getting back to the major road. You will also have some, I forgot the name for this one, for these roads. But anyway, whatever they are, you can see all of them. And therefore, you will also need to do intersection design. So how do you perceive intersection design in this case? So this is one single intersection that you'll be designing at this specific case. So after that, we'll move all the way and you can see there's traffic merger. So this means you need also to design for acceleration and deceleration sections here. So the traffic is moving from the loop road in this case and getting into the major highway. So you need to figure out what design elements do I need to increase to apply here for traffic mergers, minimizing conflict. Interestingly, at the very same point, or probably within the same region, we are having another road that is exiting from the major road. So, Mr. Design Engineer, Madam Engineer, what are you going to do about that? What features are you going to provide that are not going to obstruct the traffic in the major road? Remember, when you're designing any element, the priority is always on the through traffic. I'll leave that for you to digest. Now, let us get to the holy grail of what we've been discussing today. So this is it right here. And we talked about one principle. Number one is when you're providing these, we need to provide a roundabout in an instance or in an area where the traffic in the major road is less than 3 times the traffic on the minor road. So this is the minor road that you can see it's going to a bush somehow. Anyway, I mean, it's a way to offload traffic, but it's joining the A2 road someplace all the way up here. So this means that the traffic flow on this side will be very minimal. And therefore, we can be able to at least provide a roundabout in such a scenario. The other point is, if you wanted to give priority to the major road, then you can be able to have an overpass that is carrying traffic in the major road overpass, and then you need to design now for service roads that are going to carry the minor traffic that is negotiating, that is coming from the town here. So those are 2 recommendations. So yes, you can have the roundabout, okay, to be like a service road or for the service road, and then you have an overpass for the major traffic. So these are scenarios where also the traffic, you find the traffic of the major road is a little bit like above the 3,000 vehicles per hour limit that is giving the road design manual. Of course, naturally, if you do analysis using the PVT, whatever, VSIM, and also using the HDM4, you will always find that that is a mark. The 3,000 is not a guesswork. It's something that is practical there. So then, how can you be able to improve? And this is how roundabouts are improved. So for example, you improve by introducing the overpass. So that means you're carrying a huge chunk of the major traffic flow of the through traffic over the roundabout. And then in that case, what then would that look like? The cost of the project goes up because now designing the bridge here, the overpass, and then also the entire excavation works and earthworks becomes super crazy. Then if that is not the option, then what would you do? For example, what you see recommended in this design, we are having loop roads. So we have a loop that will be turning instead of the traffic that is turning left to join this highway to come to the roundabout, it can be able to exit at this point and join the major road at some distance far away. So we will reduce, and look at this way, the traffic volume in this case is not balanced. So we have more traffic coming from this point, that is from the city. Okay, it's a town. More traffic coming from the town than the traffic that is coming on this other fourth leg. Okay, so one of the major thing that we can be able to do is provide a loop road here, gonna exit traffic at this point, and then also we have another one so that the major traffic, instead of it going through the overpass or coming to take the left turn at this point, it can be able to exit using a loop road here and join the highway at this on ahead. And therefore that means we will reduce or will improve the performance of the roundabout at this specific point. So what I'm saying is all of this knowledge should be applied contextually. So we are talking about all of those parameters. Those parameters must be applied contextually to our case here to meet the minimum design requirements. So let's see how this was done in another model. This is the same design project. I've just made a few copies so that you can have a look at some of these things. So the first thing that I want us to look at is we will be driving on the left now. I don't want us to drive on the right, but come with me. Let us drive on the left-hand side. So this is the entry radius. So this radius is what you are talking about, designing them to be curvilinear. So you can see it's from the edge and it's curvilinear to the edge of the pavement at this point, and it exits to this other edge, right? And then the other point is, of course, the central one. You can see the curve. You see that? It's tangential to the circulatory roadway. I think it is from practice that Captain West said, when you're designing your entry radius, in this case, for this one, the rule of the thumb within entry radius is you will always use an entry radius of around 35 meters. There is a road design manual that says that, so I'm not the one, please. And you will note that, for example, for this one, you can see that you see for an entry, you'll notice that, for example, for the design speed that we have chosen, you see this one is using the major road design speed as a basis for choosing the entry radius. And it will say that you can, for a design speed of probably 50, you can use 20 for all of these. But ideally, the maximum one is always around 35 meters, the maximum radius that you need to use for the entry. And then you find that also for the exit radius, the design speed for the, or rather the radius for the exit are always very, very, very big. Why is that the case? Okay, not very, very big. I think that I take back those ones. The exit radius are comparatively higher than those of the entry radius. Why? We are forcing vehicles entering the roundabout, we are forcing them to lower the speed. But then after making the maneuver, we want them to at least accelerate so that we don't have queuing within the roundabout. But then that is one of the rationale. But then again, the radius should not be too big, because if it's too big or too large, it means that the vehicles are going to kill the road user or the pedestrian at this point. So this is a critical aspect, balancing the two. Let's get to measure that. So I'm going to annotate radius, and then the radius here, I'm gonna select this one. Let's see. So you can see the radius here is 35 meters. If we talk about any design vehicle, it means that any design vehicle is possibly going to be able to pass through this section. It is able to negotiate if they wanted to make a complete left turn at this point. And we say the minimum turning radius for a truck is around 17.5 meters, then you can be able to make a complete turn in that case. If we check the radius for the exit, you can see it's comparatively larger than the entry radius. This is like 46 meters. That's like 10 meters higher. So the vehicle will be able to at least accelerate out through this section. We'll also check some other thing that I want us to check is the central island. So this is the central island, and we can see the diameter is around 40 meters. So this one, you can see the right of way. This is the right of way. This is the right of way at this point. And also you can see able to see this is the right of way. So ideally in our design, we wanted to make maximum or utilize the entire road reserve in this area. But then also the size of this central island of the inscribed circle determines the kind of maneuver and the movement that we expect to have around the roundabout. So this is the optimal distance. We'll be talking about it. It's balancing between, of course, the available space and then also the speed analysis that we will be able to carry out. The other aspect that we need to look at is the circulatory lane. So if we measure the circulatory lane from this point to this point, you can see this is around 10, and this is less, or this is inclusive of the central aisle of the apron. So you can see in this one, we included an apron. Okay, this is a capstone of 0.3, so we don't have an apron. We just have a curb. That this is a raised curb because this is a double lane roundabout. So you must be able to have a raised curb around this section. You'll have your lanes here, and of course the clearance. There is of course a clearance of like 0.6 meters from this point, and you see what is left is around 9.1 meters as the width of the circulatory carriageway, just like we and it recommended. Then there is always the question of what is the appropriate location of these pedestrian or crosswalk. This one, there's always a rule of the thumb that you can be able to have at least one vehicle, one unit vehicle from the edge. This is called the yield line. From the yield line to where you position your pedestrian, it's always a range of between 1 to 3 vehicles. So what is the length of one vehicle? We mostly work around with, I think it was 6 meters. I think 6 meters or something. That's the length of the passenger car. And then you can be able to double that. That is 2 meters or 3 meters, or times 2 or times 3. That is, can be able to accommodate 2 to 3 vehicles. The other idea is you don't want it to be too long because it's going to encourage queuing, and you also don't want it to be very short, So ideally, I think for this case, we used 2 vehicles. I suppose that's the case. Yes, yeah, it's around 10 meters. Let me measure it appropriately. Yes, it is around 10 meters. Those are like 2 vehicles in that case that you have here. And then that works for us in this design. So remember, all of these parameters are dependent on the site-to-site conditions. So don't fixate your mind on anything. And that's how you get to do the design. So I think I'm getting to run super fast in this section. So this is a complete design. We have 2 roundabouts. So this is the first roundabout. This is a double lane roundabout. there's the Splitter Highland. There's a whole science that goes around the Splitter Highland because it's like a safety haven in roundabout design. And then after that, we have a staggered intersection. We'll be working on that. But then also we have another roundabout on this other end. This is the second roundabout that is within this project. And then after that, we have T-junctions that we'll be able to model that are very easy. You know, these are the T-junctions. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this at least has built some background information on what entails this section. I'll be producing some videos on how now to do the actual design. And of course, I'm having a course that is going to start on 14th of May. So if you're willing to be part of that, I will be able to shoot you an email. I'm assuming that, of course, you are part, you have registered for the webinar. So, and I will also communicate through the various communication channels that we have. And I want now to go to the chat box and respond to some questions. And I can see Job is talking, Samuel is talking MTB model. MTB, model town board. It's always important when it comes to any driving school. So as you go into designing any roundabout, the principle is think like a driver, think like a pedestrian, think like a technical engineer, think like a safety engineer, think like a construction man, and think all round as a spectator, or as also the person who is funding the project. Otherwise, your project will never see the light of the day. So I hope that this session has been able to at least paint a picture of what goes around the design of roundabout. It is such an extensive area. I think the manual is around 2,000 pages. So I could not be able to cover everything today, but I've tried to the best of my ability. And I hope that at least you've been able to gather one or two. Yes, the course is going to include both the roundabout and the intersections, and we'll be using these very specific to this one. And the cost is going to be just $100. So I'm going to share that with you, and I'm going to give communications. And I like this. Thank you very much. Adis is saying that, is it possible for him to share your roundabout? Yes, please. Please share. Let me allow you to share. Are you in a position to share?
Yes, sir. I am.
Sorry?
Yes, I'm in the position. You hear me?
Sorry? Adis, I didn't get you clearly. Okay, great. I hope you come back again, or you can use the chat box. I am not able to get to hear you. But we need to make this course come to you. Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, sir. I'm in a position I can share if you allow me.
Yes, please. Of course, definitely.
Okay, I'm sharing now. You see?
Not yet. It's loading. Love it.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Now, in this case, we had a magistral road without roundabout, and this is a local road. This is a magistral road that connecting with a local road.
Yes.
Here we had many accidents. Sorry, my license is down. I need to renew. We had here a lot of accidents, and I do a conclusion that in this site, in this road, we should project a roundabout. And in our country, the driving lane is from right side, opposite from Africa. And This radius from here is 12 meters, minimum radius for heavy trucks. And now with this roundabout that I did, we did a minimizing from accidents, and also we do a connection to people, to pedestrian, because I mentioned that in this site we had a local road, and also people here we doesn't have pedestrians, and with new project we designed a across lines that pedestrians they can go to another side. And this one's interesting case that I did to one town in my country. And your lesson from here, it was so grateful, so many informations. And also I visit Africa. I was 2 times now. I was in Tanzania and now I was in Seychelles. And I saw rules of communication, how it's going traffic. It was so beautiful, interesting. And maybe one time I want to come to work in Africa. It was good. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a very good design.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And I agree with you. It's good to know you in Tanzania. And
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, sir.
I'm looking at if I want to ask, how do you connect existing road with the roundabout? That's super easy. We do the design of the road profiles. And in that case, now you have the elevations of the existing road and then make sure that, we were looking at the horizontal alignment or the layout design. And then there is also the design of the vertical profiles of the roundabout that now make sure that you interconnect all of these elements of the roundabout. Okay, so thank you. I think I'm out of gas today. It's always good to see you people. Um, I hope that this is going to be a great one for you. I'm seeing Abdul and all of you would want to join these, and you're most welcome. I remember I had promised to complete at 9:30, but my subconscious has always been running up to 10 p.m. So thank you very much for your time. I hope this is going to